Good morning, fourth grade. For the past week, we have been exploring different food webs in our different environments. We have been looking at how different living organisms, like plants and animals, depend on each other for food, which gives them energy. Today, we are going to be taking a close look at food webs and adding it to our journal. But before I want to get started, I want to let you know that we will have an ecosystems and food web test on Thursday, May 6th. That is 2 Thursdays from now. So we will have time to study and review ecosystems and food webs, and then our test will be on Thursday, May 6th. You will take your test during homeroom and we will be able to review. Now let's get into our lesson. Before we get started, I want you to please update your table of contents. If you turn to page 2 on your table of contents, we're going to add 2 entries. The first thing we're going to do is write our date, which is 4-21, and our first entry is Food Web Model. You are going to add that on page 37. If you already have the definition for decomposer on page 37, that is fine. Just draw a line and we will add our food web model below. And then our second entry we're gonna date it the same, 4-21, and we're gonna add a food web example. That will be on page 38. I will give you guys right now about 3 minutes to update your table of contents. Alright, now that you have updated your table of contents, let's jump in onto page 37 to look at a food web model. So on page 37, we're going to draw this model. This model shows us how producers, consumers, and decomposers all make up a food web in our environment. So I want you to take about 5 minutes to adding this table onto page 37. Please make sure you add these boxes onto page 37. And once you are finished, we're going to take a close look at each different category and see what their role is. Alright, now that you have added that, let's take a close look at producers. Producers are at our bottom of our food web. Producers are those organisms that are able to make their own food. These Organisms are able to make their own food through the process of photosynthesis. They are able to use the sun's light energy to make their own food that helps them grow. Examples of producers are grass, trees, flowers, fruits, algae. These are all different producers that use the process of photosynthesis to be able to turn the light energy into food for their systems and then help them grow. Now, if we follow producers up and we go up our arrow, we have our next category in the food web, which is consumers. So, consumers describes different organisms that consume or eat other organisms for their energy. Consumers cannot make their own food. They depend on either other plants or other animals to give them food for energy. There are three different types of consumers. There are herbivores. Herbivores are those animals that only eat plants, like turtles, rabbits, zebras, grasshoppers, and deer. These organisms are consumers because they depend on another organism to get their food, but they only rely on plants to get their food. Our second type of consumers are carnivores. Carnivores are these organisms that also need other animals to get their food or for energy, but carnivores depend on will eat other animals for their energy. So like wolves, lions, frogs, and snakes, those are carnivores, meaning that they only eat meat for their energy. If you look at the root of this word, carnivore, kind of sounds like the Spanish word carne, which means meat, and that is what these animals eat, only meat. These animals eat meat. Now, if we look at the root word of herbivore, the root word is herbs, which is another word that can be used for plants. These animals that are herbivores only eat flowers, grass, or different types of plants. And then our third group of consumers are omnivores. Omnivores are those organisms that are also consumers, but they eat both plants and both animals. Omnivores are rats, bears, squirrels, and chickens, and so many more. Omnivores will either eat another type of animal or will also eat different plants for their energy. Herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores are all consumers. They just have different preferences on what they like to eat. Now, if we keep going up on our food web, we have those decomposers. Decomposers are those organisms that break apart the food. Decomposers are able to get their food for energy from those organisms that are already dead, whether it be a plant that is decaying or an animal or a dead animal. The root word of decomposers is decompose, and decompose means to break down. And that's exactly what these decomposers, like fungi and bacteria, do. They break down those animals into tiny pieces so that they are able to be nutrients again to go into the soil, help plants grow, to continue the whole cycle to help our ecosystems flourish. We have looked at the three parts of a food web. We have producers at the bottom. Above producers, we have consumers. which means that they eat other organisms. And then above consumers, we have decomposers, which break down the food to help it go back into the soil. We are going to stop our lesson right here. Make sure you have added this food web model to page 37. Tomorrow, we will take a close look at a real food web using different examples of animals. Make sure that you are reviewing the vocabulary words like food chain, ecosystem, producer, consumer, herbivore, and also looking at this food web model as it will be helpful for your exam, which will be on Thursday, May 6th. If you have any questions, please either join me on my live stream or come to office hours from 2 to 3:30. Thank you and have a great day. See you tomorrow.